Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. This is Sree Iyer and I'd like to update you with the happenings in Oxford University. Our guest for today is Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji. Pandit ji, pranam and hope all is well with you and your family, sir.
Pranam ji, namaskar, and good to be with you. You're looking very well.
Thank you, sir, and so do you. Pandit ji, further to our last hangout, the world is now talking about two events, one in Rutgers University and another at Oxford University. The topic is the same, Hindu odium, contempt and hatred for Hindus and Hinduism. And the Indian mainstream media has been talking about this non-stop for the past several days. And I am just curious how things are over in United Kingdom, sir. Is United Kingdom media, UK media covering this at all?
It's a wonderful question, and I'm sad to say, no, it's not. I do know that Rashmi, who is the young lady in the eye of this storm, has been interviewed by a number of mainstream UK publications, but the articles have not been published. It's quite a strange thing. As we go through this process of trying to work our way through to an amicable and a positive solution for everybody concerned, we're just discovering impediments on each step of the way. In fact, it's a good point that you've raised. The social media environment is actually very active amongst our Hindu community here in the UK, in the US, amongst the Hindus in India. There's now a very solid flow, and the network is sharing all sorts of information, but the mainstream is diligently, and I'm sure completely accidentally, not even noticing that this issue exists. That will change in the very near future, I'm confident of that. There have been a few developments now which will make it unavoidable.
Now, Oxford University did come out with some sort of an official response, didn't they?
They did. They published a very comprehensive statement which reasserted that they held the highest standards and they expected the highest standards from all their employees and from students, and that there were policies in place to ensure that these things didn't happen, and if they did happen, that they're dealt with in a timely and a professional fashion. I must admit that statement is now beginning to look a little bit, shall we say, more virtue signalling and less substance in light of some of the revelations that have arisen over the last 24 hours even, some of which I'd like to share with you and your viewers.
Absolutely, sir. It is very important that Oxford know the truth, and also so are our viewers. After all, Rashmi Samant is, from a small town girl who has made good. She got into Oxford in engineering discipline, and then for her career to take this sort of a turn is really, really sad. And I'm hoping that if there's any way this can be, set right, especially in view of what you think are new revelations, please go ahead.
No, you're right. At the heart of all of this, as I mentioned, is Rashmi, and a 22-year-old who paid some £25,000, I believe, to be able to secure the place that she had earned. So this is a huge, it's a dream come true, isn't it? It's the dream story for an Indian student in many cases.
Yes.
But what's happened now is that dream is a little bit under stress. She is trying to recover it. We're trying to change the environment in Oxford so that she can return to Oxford safely. There have been a couple of things that have happened in the last 24 hours, some of which I'll share with you. Now, as you know, we were in conversation with the university, and we directed their attention to some quite unpleasant tweets that Sarkar had publicized. There were posts on his Instagram account which were very unpleasant and targeting Rashmi Samant and her family. But there were also some tweets which were a little bit inappropriate. We had thought that by directing the university's attention to these, they would be able to take them into account quickly and process whatever procedure they have to come to a conclusion and to initiate the appropriate disciplinary procedures. Now, had that happened, we would be talking about Rashmi returning to Oxford in a much better frame of mind and into a place which is safer. But that hasn't happened. But what has happened is some of the tweets that we were aware of have now entered the public domain. some publishers in India have also done their due diligence and researched what this Dr. Abhijit Sarkar is like, and have gone through and trawled through his emails and his, sorry, not his emails, his social media platforms. And they've done pretty much what the lynch mob did to Rashmi, only they have actually vetted and audited Dr. Sarkar's social media. One would have hoped that places like the Oxford Students' Union and these students who were just so concerned about the offence that Rashmi's posts would cause would be as diligent all the time looking at other people's to make sure that the atmosphere in Oxford was actually as wonderful as they've always all touted. But what we found was sadly different.
And you can go ahead and share those offensive tweets slash Instagram posts or Facebook posts. I don't know which social media platform these were put on, sir. The screen is yours.
Well, the researchers that we have, they were conducting an analysis of the tweets that Dr. Sarkar has had, and we were in possession of these a short while earlier. And here's a typical example. As you can see, we've redacted some of the more offensive words and phrases, but this is probably one of the softer, gentler ones. There are a few other tweets which are much, much more unpleasant, and this is publicly available data. This is not concealed or it's not private, and anybody who is engaged in communications with Dr. Sarkar via this medium would have been aware of these. So this is just one example. But there are other examples which are significantly more offensive. I don't even really want to go there, but very soon these will be in the public space, and anybody can go and check Dr. Sarkar's Twitter feed and establish these. But as I say, some publications in India have already published these this evening, and they are now demanding that Dr. Sarkar should also receive the same level of scrutiny and be held to the same high standards of publication and communications that were forced on Rashmi. And Rashmi's posts pale into insignificance when compared with the posts that we're dealing with and that we're talking about. So my hope is that we tried to gently encourage the Oxford University administration to have a look at these, but they didn't do so to the best of our knowledge. But now I'm pretty sure they'll have no choice, and they will have to have a look at these. And the picture that's painted by these is sadly not the picture of a sound, happy, pleasant sort of an individual who you want interacting with vulnerable students. So this is going to escalate now. And one aspect of this which I think is worth also noting is that we have an adage, don't we, that people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And this is a classic example of somebody doing that. I hope that all of the other parties who were throwing stones at Rashmi when she was vulnerable, who were bullying her, are as clean in their own personal profiles and their own social media posts as they have demanded Rashmi be. Perhaps this evening we're going to see a whole load of Twitter accounts and feeds suddenly go private and become archived. But it's a tragedy that this is now becoming clearly established, that Rashmi's wrongdoing was not wrongdoing, that people chose to make a mountain out of what really should have been a molehill, that they harassed her and harangued her, and claiming a moral high ground. And what we're seeing now, that the moral high ground that all of these parties usurped and established their campaigns upon, rather than being moral high grounds, they're actually standing on quicksand. And we are going to, I'm sure we're going to see in the next few days, comments and an assessment and an evaluation of the individual societies and their position, because they too took a completely unnecessary, quite defamatory position in publishing statements against Rashmi. And the highlights that I just shared with you suddenly put them all into a slightly different context. So the glare of scrutiny, I'm sure, is going to shift now as a result of the publications that have now been published in India and in the press.
Yes, and I sure hope so. And it's important that someone who is a postdoctoral researcher in a prestigious institution such as the Oxford maintain a certain standard of decorum, no matter how much you can try and sugarcoat it by saying, oh, well, this is his personal Twitter handle. He did not tweet it from, I'm sure this is going to come. That's why I'm trying to, forestall these kinds of observations that it might come and say, it might come and say, oh, well, he didn't do it using his official Oxford Twitter handle. And therefore, it doesn't mean that this reflects Oxford's views. These are all, yes, that is technically true, except
Sure.
that if you are this, it goes right back to what you said. People living in glass houses should not be throwing stones. That's where the problem is. And if they are holding Rashmi Samant to a very high standard, and then it is but natural that they be held to the same, in fact, higher standard.
Now, I was going to say, we don't know the degree to which he interacts professionally with students. What we do certainly know is that he interacts with students on a non-professional basis and in a manner which is quite unprofessional and certainly not expected of a member of faculty, and certainly not a senior researcher as well. So this is an unpleasant development, and I do think it's going to be quite difficult for Oxford, to the administrators now, to pretend that actually there wasn't an issue and to justify how long they took to actually engage with this issue and what it's taken. It's really taken a global campaign. It's taken active lobbying and educating and providing information to get them to actually move. But on the basis of what we've now seen, I think it was overdue, and that really is remiss of the Oxford authorities. I think that's a failure in their procedures and indeed their approach to policing those procedures.
It is very unfortunate that Oxford comes out with a boilerplate-like statement, which they could be putting it or taking it from their prospectus that they give to future students and say, "Oh, we give you all these things." Not even address. Was there even mention of Rashmi Samant in the press release?
There wasn't any mention, but we're gauging this on one simple measurement, one simple criteria, one simple metric, and that is that he hasn't to date been asked to take down the offensive items that he posted in the first instance. And that is really negligent. And if that's indicative of the enthusiasm with which the policies are applied and the anti-bullying processes are implemented, then that's a serious cause for concern. And that really doesn't give Rashmi a huge amount of confidence that if she returns, then her well-being is protected by the same authorities. This has to be addressed urgently. And so let's see what tomorrow and the days after bring. The Hindu community globally has really done amazing work in focusing on this issue and ensuring that it was pressed forward so that normally otherwise truculent entities like the Oxford administration, they have been required to engage. And that old colonial arrogance of we will engage at our point of choosing and in the manner that we choose, that's not going to withstand the scrutiny that's now being placed on their capacity to deal with this issue.
Thank you very much, Panditji, and I hope that better sense prevails and that we see some action in this issue. And viewers, please do subscribe to our channel and donate to our cause. One question I had, I wanted to ask you this last thing. Now, what are the steps forward? Because you had also filed some complaints in various places. Have they reached their logical conclusion? What is the status on that?
Again, the complaints that we have filed, they have commenced procedures and processes, but I am immensely disappointed at the lack of progress that has been made. We have just noticed that the situation that we're finding here has also happened in an American university where 3 professors were found to have posted messages which were deemed to be offensive and potentially racist, and they were immediately suspended. We have the professor in SOAS who had completely innocently, inadvertently, and with no intention of malice, used the N-word, and he was immediately asked to step aside. And now we have Oxford where this has been going on, and this individual has had free rein to post very unpleasant views, and nothing has happened, and it's now been the best part of a month. The process that we've implemented and instigated with the police, they too are moving forward, but there is so little information that's being shared, and we're a little disappointed that that's not moving faster as well. But that will change too. That will change too.
And I sure hope so, Panditji. You've been working ceaselessly for this to make sure that this issue is brought to attention of everyone, and also to take up this poor girl who essentially fled back to India, and then she fell sick there, and it's very sad how this is actually trauma for her. The way she has been treated. She was hardly a few months into her program at Oxford, and all this happened. And I'm hoping that better sense prevails, and that this thing is put to bed as soon as possible. Now Oxford has some precedents from United States universities how they deal with this kind of behavior, and it's really regrettable when it's like ostrich burying its head in the sand and hoping that everything will go away. That's the equivalence that I can draw. I could be wrong, so it's my opinion and my view. And
Well, I
I,
think one thing, sorry, one thing it has given us a chance to do is to actually assess the systems that exist for dealing with discrimination and acts of abuse against Hindus. We are monitoring pretty much the days in which we communicate, what date was it done, how long before we got a response, was the response adequate? And so although our focus is on getting Rashmi back to her studies and successfully completing them, we're also using this to depth test the manner in which the establishment actually engages with us. We've always assumed that should we ever need it, it will be absolutely fine and we will be dealt with equality. But I must admit that presumption is looking as though it was not founded on science or on knowledge. And so we're monitoring this situation. After it's all done and dusted, we will then review exactly what the experience was and see what we need to do to make sure that if it happens again, it's dealt with very, very efficiently and given equal attention and priority.
Thank you very much, Panditji. It was a pleasure, as always, to have you on our channel, and all the best. And hopefully, this thing settles down quickly.
Thank you very much for your seva, Sree. And again, to all your viewers, I'm going to give a shout out for you now. Please support the channel. Sree does a great deal of work, and we often disclose and reveal news and developments on PGurus long before they're available anywhere else. So please do subscribe, and indeed, I think, ring the notification bell. There you go. Thank you very much, Sree. Namaskar. Have a good evening.
Namaskar. Thank you so much for your good words.